Bonjour. Bonne année. Welcome to a new episode of So French, a podcast about the twists and turns, intrigues and insights to all things French.
Every 2 weeks, we select the best, most interesting and fascinating of French news stories, all brought to you from our studio in the heart of Paris.
This week, is the French government executing its own citizens abroad? We'll walk you through accusations of targeted killings approved by the president himself in legally grey zones.
And after the 35-hour work week, a legal right not to reply to work emails. And on top of that, a tax-free year in France. Maybe this country is turning into be the heaven on earth.
And of course, Mot Descamps brings us a fresh French word of the day.
Every year, of course, there's a bunch of new laws taking effect. And this year was one in particular who generated quite a few headlines and articles, especially in foreign media, actually. And it has been described as a right for French workers to no longer answer emails outside working hours.
Yeah, it's not exactly that. It sounds great, of course, but it's actually not a law that imposes this on companies, but actually it's a proposition for larger companies to negotiate with their employees that they take the time to disconnect. So after working hours, they disconnect their telephone, their email, their WhatsApp, and all the other ways of staying in touch. And they can no longer force employees to reply outside working hours. So it's a little progress. It only applies to companies with more than 50 employees. So smaller companies can still, answer you 24 hours a day. So that's basically the rule. So it's a proposition. It's not a very hard law.
No, it was really. It's been really described and sold as this whole idea of
the French are never working.
Exactly, and not even going to
lazy.
answer their emails. Yeah. But it's a bit more vague than that. But there is a couple of companies who actually, even before this law took effect, they took some measures. So there are some bigger companies who've already started to block their email service from 6 in the afternoon till 7 o'clock in the morning. So no emails from the work email goes to people's smartphones outside of work.
Yeah. Well, there's something to say for it because, of course, nowadays we're connected all the time, everywhere. It's very difficult to make the distinction between professional life and personal life. So it goes into the right direction. But at the other hand, there are also many companies in France, of course, who operate 24 hours a day or globally. So for them,
I don't think it applies for to journalists.
No, we're always imagine breaking news is being delayed a couple of hours because we're not allowed to tweet or to reply to our mail. So, but there's something else that, well, probably it's not sure whether it will work because there are no sanctions. If the company,
so if these negotiations lead nowhere,
the company will just send an email after 6 o'clock saying that from now on the employees still have to reply. And well, not everybody wants to disconnect. There are a lot of people who don't mind actually staying in touch. So, well,
but apparently people still, even if workers today want to stay reachable outside working hours. According to a survey, more than 60% of French workers were actually in favor of some kind of regulation. That this kind of question had to be regulated in one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think it also depends a lot of the kind of work you're doing. If you're a lawyer, you have to be, can be reached by your clients 24 hours a day. But maybe it's less important if you're a secretary or. But I think it's not necessarily the fact that the French are lazy, but I think they're showing that life is not all about work, and this measure is maybe one small step into a direction where people are maybe get a little bit less addicted to all their smart machines. What do you think?
No, I think it's a good idea, and I think that France shows that they're actually in the forefront of this kind of discussions, that I think all countries will have to have at some point. So probably a good thing. Will it be easy to apply, to actually put in place? Probably not, but at least to raise the issue and the question is something that's probably good.
Yeah. So this is the news that France is there's a new law in effect that French workers no longer need to answer emails outside working hours. But if you want to send us an email, don't worry, we'll still reply you 24 hours on Twitter @SoFrenchNews. Now it's time for the French word of the day. Bonjour, Maud.
Bonjour, Stefan.
It's the new year, so it's time for all kinds of new things like stopping with drinking.
For instance.
Doing radical things. Huh?
Doing radical things, exactly.
Yeah, and that's your word of this week, radical. What does it mean?
But it's not, actually, I didn't choose the word radical because we make radical choices at the beginning of the year, but because a political personality in France chose this word to define his political program for the next election. This guy is François Fillon. I think we talked about him already because he's the winner of the primary election for the right, the Republican Party in France.
So he's a radical young man just starting in politics.
I wouldn't say
he wants to
that
change
young,
everything.
but this is that's the idea. But the thing is, this guy has a very conservative program. So what I did, you know me, I looked into my etymology dictionary to know the origins of the word. So there are like a few meanings. I say a few, but there are actually like 10 different meanings for the word radical.
Oh, that's a lot.
So first of all, the word radical comes from radicalis, the Latin radicalis, which is a derivative of radix, which means root, the roots as a
plant.
Yeah, as a plant. So there's the first meaning is a botanical meaning to qualify something that is similar to plant roots. But there is another meaning for radical, which is actually something you do to forget about the past, like you do exactly the opposite.
François Fillon has been prime minister for 5 years. Does he want to forget these?
I don't know, because he has a conservative program.
Yeah.
So I guess this is not the meaning we're looking for here. So I kept looking in my dictionary. And there is another interesting meaning. Something radical is also something you do without any nuances. So I guess this is a meaning we could apply to his political program because...
So the opposite of subtle.
Exactly. You have one idea, you stick to it, and it's like one block. There is no gray zone.
Yeah.
So I guess we could apply this meaning to his political program. And finally, there is another meaning, which is the political meaning. A radical program is principle that would apply to all the aspects of our life, including our private life. And well, I think this is a dimension that could be a question, or at least that we should think about before choosing our candidate for the next election.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially since the invasion of the private life by governments is really something that's really trendy right now in all the countries. No more private life for security.
For security and also about the religious debate is really high, is really intense at the moment in France. And François Fillon claimed himself as a Christian candidate, and meaning he's bringing the religion into the political debate, which shouldn't, because in France we do separate religion and public matters.
Okay. Well, that was the word radical. Merci beaucoup, Maud Descamps.
Is the French government participating in killings of its own citizens abroad? Well, at least according to some new information. And this information comes out just a few months before François Hollande is leaving power. So, Stefan, tell us, what is this all about?
Well, it's actually a series of reports by the daily Le Monde this week. They revealed that François Hollande has been giving orders to kill high-value targets. So these are individuals who are posing a threat to France.
Sounds like a movie or something.
Absolutely, it sounds like James Bond, and it is a little bit like James Bond, because these killings are carried out by the DGSE, which is not the army, but it's a French secret service outside the country, which is
the CIA of France.
The MI6, if you like James Bond, so the equivalent of James Bond. And this is really what happens. These are agents that they have no uniforms, no military uniform. They arrive somewhere in a country where they don't have any rights. they go to this specific target, they kill it, and they leave the country immediately without leaving a trace. Well, if they do the job right, of course. Now, this is something that's not really new. France has been doing this for a very long time, especially during the Algerian War, for instance. Other countries are doing it as well. But what is new, however, is that François is using his power very, very often. In the article in Le Monde, it is said that between 2013 and 2016, 40 operations were carried out. So that's about one a month. And this is really coming from François Hollande himself. He's the only one who can give the order to kill somebody. So this is.
But if there are no traces and no one's supposed to know about this, how come this is now in news reports?
Well, I think Le Monde has really excellent sources. Some of the ex-secret agents have talked. And there's also been the chief of staff of the army has talked to a parliamentary commission a couple of months ago, and he has admitted that in 8 cases, François Hollande gave the order to kill specific targets. I think Le Monde just did some excellent work.
And so how legal is this then?
Well, that's the interesting question.
Or illegal, maybe I should ask.
Yes, it's a very gray zone because France is not the only country doing this. It's doing it in Iraq, in the Sahel, and also in Syria. And in Iraq and Mali, for instance, these countries are at war. They ask for assistance by the Allied forces, by France. There are also United Nations resolutions. So these countries are at war. In that case, war law applies to the killings. So in these cases, there's a judiciary framework. But in Syria, there's no war. We're not officially at war with Syria. The government of Syria did not ask for any assistance, nor in Libya, because that's also a place where probably these executions were carried out. So this is a gray zone. France says, well, these people are threats to our country, so we have the right to self-defense, so we can kill them. Well, they don't really say that because that would also be admitting that they're doing it. But, you know, if you talk to lawyers, that's probably what they will use as a defense. There's another complication is that in most of the cases, these are French citizens. So they're killing their own citizens, which means that France still has the death penalty, which is legally non-existent anymore.
And penalty before having even been convicted, actually.
Yeah, maybe that's even worse because some of these people are already under investigation or already charged by French judges. And François Hollande personally says, well, we don't need the judges, let's kill them. So it's a very gray area. And
so who are these people that are being
most
targeted?
of them are jihadists, people who pose a threat, who may be preparing attacks on France. But this has already started in 2013, so before the wave of terrorist attacks in France. But it's, for instance, people who kidnapped French citizens. So it's basically retaliation. You can also call it revenge. But what's most interesting is that François Hollande is not the weak person a lot of people think he is, but he's actually, well, carrying out most killings than any other president before him. And now, Sara, it's a new year and I have some excellent news for you.
Oh, tell me.
You are not going to pay any income taxes this year.
Excellent. After not having to reply to work emails, I can work 34 hours a week, and now I don't even have to pay income tax.
Yeah,
perfect.
It sounds too good to be true, but actually no French working person this year will pay any income tax because the French government, well, said it's time for a new system and we can't have 2 systems at once. So here's a gift. It's an election year, so no income tax at all.
Sounds great.
Sounds good, isn't it? But it's not quite so good. The French, being the French, they're not very happy with it. It's actually a bit complicated.
Of course, this is France. Everything's complicated.
Yes. So French. Until now, the French had a very strange tax system when it came to income tax. Basically, all the workers received their gross salary on their bank account, and they had to save the amount that they think they were going to pay, because you pay income tax next year, which is very strange. It cost me a lot of money because the first 2 years when I worked in France, nobody ever told me about this system because the French thought it was so normal. Why would you explain it to a foreigner? And then 2 years later, I got a letter from the tax services, 20,000 euros, please pay in 1 week. So I learned it the hard way. And France is one of the few countries in the world that has this system. In the rest of the world, basically, you receive your salary and the income tax is already held back by your employer. And so this is going to change. France is becoming a little bit more normal now.
Must say, this has been a project for, I don't know, for decades in France.
30 years, I
no
think.
government has ever no one's ever managed to actually go through with it.
Except for François Hollande. And now, so...
man of action, one could say.
A man of action, we already learned that in the previous story. So from next year on, in 2018, the income tax will be deducted from your salary every month, like in every normal country. But it means that it was difficult to have a transition year because it would have meant that the French would have paid twice for this year and for last year. So that the government basically said, well, what the heck? Don't pay any taxes this year. Every year the French government receives around 68 billion euros in income tax. So this is what the money will cost to the French government.
Is there any way that one could take advantage of this situation?
Yes.
So it means that yes,
tell me. There is. Well, yes and no. If you could take advantage by, for instance, earning a lot of money this year. For instance, you could ask your employer. Perfect plan. Always a good plan. Ask your employer to pay, for instance, your salary of next year, or do something creative so you earn more. But there is a little danger. If you earn far more than the average of the last couple of years, the revenue service will look into your file, and then, maybe you get you will have to pay tax nevertheless. But yes, it's an option that you will, do some creative bookkeeping. And creative bookkeeping is exactly what the French government does as well, because they say it doesn't cost a thing, because people are paying their taxes this year for 2016, and in 2018 they start paying with the taxes of 2018. So there's no gap year. But of course, this is...
at the end of the world, will be 1 year missing.
Of course, and that's about 68 billion euros. So that's the price of this gift to the French taxpayers by François Hollande, who's leaving the stage. Maybe he will remember it for this huge present. And now it's time for some culture. We're going to watch a movie this week, Chez Nous, that opens in cinema on the 22nd of February, so that's in more than a month. But it's already creating controversy.
Just take a listen. This is what it's all about.
On m'a chargé de trouver un candidat pour les municipales et j'ai pensé à toi.
Et ça serait sur une liste du bloc patriotique.
C'est quelqu'un comme toi que les gens attendent. Proche d'eux. Tu trouves que c'est une fasciste? On est presque au pouvoir. Ça fait 40 ans que je me bats pour ça.
Well, this sounds like any French film. Like there's so many every week in this French cinemas. But... there's something with it.
No. This film has actually, so as you said, 6 weeks ahead of its premiere, caused major uproar, one could even say. National Front, the political far-right party, is calling it an anti-National Front film. It's saying it's a propaganda film financed with public means. They're going all the way on this one.
Did they already see it?
No, they haven't. They actually only watched
trailer.
They only watched the trailer, apparently. And they're also saying it's a scandal that this film has been allowed to premiere just during the presidential campaign. So let me tell you now, what is this all about? Well, it's actually a Belgian director. He's called Lucas Belvaux. It's a story about a nurse in the northern parts of France who is approached by a populist party who wants her to become their candidate in the local elections.
And this party is the National Front, or is it?
It's not called National Front, but if you look at the trailer and if you look at the images, and when you see the leader of this party's resemblance to a certain Marine Le Pen, you could see where the inspiration comes from.
Okay.
And of course, this movie is called Chez Nous, and this is a wording that has been directly taken from a slogan used by National Front supporters, which is "On est chez nous," which is something that is chanted in meetings. It means something like we're at home. This is our place.
Yeah,
this is
our place, and you need to adapt, and otherwise you have to leave. That's basically
this is where we decide, more or less.
So it's just art. What's the problem?
Well, they're saying that it's a caricature, that it's anti-Front National, that it's a political movie, and they're of course very, very upset that this movie even has had the right to be produced, and they're also very upset about the fact that it's being financed with public money, forgetting maybe that all French movies are produced with public money. It's one of the biggest sponsors of cinema in this country.
Yeah, that's the reason why there's so many French movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it turns out that this movie is even got less money than most French films, because in average a French movie gets about 50% of its production cost from public sponsors. And this movie actually only got 20%.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. The funny side to this is, of course, that it's a movie. If Front National wouldn't have talked about it, no one would have heard about it, at least not in another 5 weeks.
Yeah.
But from the 31st of December, they haven't stopped tweeting, talking, discussing.
It sounds like the Barbara Streisand effect, which is very
What is the Barbara Streisand effect?
Well, there was everybody knows Barbara Streisand, of course, but about 10 years ago, there was a photo of her house in Malibu in California on a website, and she wanted this website to take the photo down because she didn't want the people to know where she lived. Now, this website published the demand of Barbara Streisand, and it got so much publicity that a lot of people all around the world published the photo on their websites, and so everybody got to know where Barbara Streisand lives. So basically, the Barbara Streisand effect is when you try to forbid something, then people will react, and it will attract even more attention, and that's exactly what happened, of course, with this film. Chez nous, all this drama is only publicity for the film.
Free publicity, and they don't even have to pay for it.
And it opens in 6 weeks, and of course you can find the trailer of this very, very political movie on our website, sofrench.news. And that wraps up this edition of So French. We hope you have enjoyed it. Please follow us on Twitter at SoFrenchNews. And if you have any questions or suggestions, send us an email. Like we just said, you can reach us 24 hours a day. Our address is sofrench@sofrench.news.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or in SoundCloud. And you can find us on the TuneIn radio application. And please share our podcast with your friends. We will be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. We hope you will join us then. Until then, thanks for listening, and au revoir.